Welcome to Body Work.
Please fasten your seatbelts.
I had 11 Olympians and over 800 national champs. And all those men, they wouldn't do half the work that she do. And I'm seeing it from the young ladies. These last 2 years, when you think about it, all the good fights is coming from the women. The guys is ducking each other, looking for the easy way. Hey. I'm telling you like it is, you know? So again, you know, this young lady done did everything I asked of her, and she did more. And I'm watching all the young ladies that's boxing now. It's like they trying to prove they better than men. Now, we knew they was kind of there, but now they showing that they mean. You know, in old days in Philly, we call these guys crazy. And that's the way these women are. So when you go back home,
Welcome back. It's Michael Rogers. Welcome to Body Work Boxing. And I'm joined once again by my partner in crime, the King, Amin of Essex. You know what I'm saying? We be chopping it up over there on his joint called The Championship Rounds. You know what I'm saying? Where I liken it to playing chess on the clock. Over here on Boxing Minds, we play it off the clock. Salute, King. How your day, man?
Hey, man, pretty good. Very productive. Feeling good. Our boxing minds came together. You pitched another excellent topic that it delves deep into what we, what we contribute, and it's such a great topic, and it's judging fights. And I want you to open up the floor, like you said, we off the clock. I want you to open up the floor and set everything up the way you do with that body work, because remember, the body work sets up all them headshots. So we
Right.
need Mr. Body Work to set everything up for us.
Yes, sir. You preaching the gospel. Where do I send my offering?
I tip my hat.
But yeah, I always think that judging is probably one of the last thing we think about when we come to fights. I mean, especially when we come to when it comes down to basically some casual fans, people who don't like, not as in a derogatory sense, but that they have so much going on that they pop in when it's a good fight. Like one of the last things that someone like that would think about is the actual judging, because let's be honest, there's not always a knockout. And as the level of competition get higher, you know what I'm saying, you have to actually know what you're looking at when you're judging it. And everybody have their own favorite. We know it's 4 criteria, which is ring generalship, defense, clean, effective punction, and effective aggression. Right?
Yeah.
And I know you have a history with lacing them up and everything. So I thought this might be right up your alley, some things that from your perspective, like how you look at boxing, because we was getting ready and warming up, and you were talking about, a lot of the things that go on when we watch boxing. You might step away from the screen and you come back, or you might be, doing something, pouring a drink or going to go get a snack or something, so you might miss things. But the time when you have your eyeballs on the screen and you're watching two combatants go at it, you gotta know what you're looking at. You know, so
Absolutely.
I want to kick it off to you and say, you know, when it comes to judging a fight, you know, when we talk about those four criteria, you know, what comes to your mind as one of the most important things, you know, to get us started?
Really, from the bat, people never factor in, like you said, they never factor in the judging, but they kind of do with their game plan, right? What I mean by that is every fighter is gonna say it's like, so starting with the matchmaking.
Mm-hmm.
Some fighters are gonna know they're being lined up against a come forward opponent.
Right.
So when we start with something like effective aggression. Like when you building a fight and you saying, yo, we're gonna get you there, man. You need a couple fights. We know what you can do in the gym. We know what you can do with the stationary bag. We know what you can do with novice fighters with less skill than you. But we need to know what you can do coming forward. So
Mm-hmm.
you done already went through what you went through in sparring, and they got a nice opponent for you. They say, yeah, this is a good opponent for you. He's gonna come forward, but he don't really, he don't punch that hard, but he could catch you if you ain't paying attention. For any fighter, they gotta know activity. Activity can equal effective aggression. Because even if you got a come forward fighter, if you ready for the counter, or if you know how to just move and counter, whether you stay there in the pocket, is so many things you can do where effective aggression doesn't necessarily mean come forward. You could
Right.
be a technical guy and still be exhibiting effective aggression because maybe you nullify the come forward fighter from coming forward. So that's the
Right. Right.
first thing. Activity is really what's going to give the fighter the advantage of effective aggression if I'm watching the fight, right?
Right.
Um Go ahead.
But and to speak on that, I'm just thinking about like foot pressure because you have a lot of boxers that are you know, they'll come forward because I think Cambosis is like that in a sense where you know he's coming forward, he's putting pressure, he's coming in front of you, but he's really waiting to counter you. And
Mhm.
to somebody that don't really know what they're doing, they thinking that oh he's really trying to walk me down, but he's not. He's getting you to try to make a move so he can counter it. You know what I'm saying? I think that that's a lost art. I mean, not a lost art, but it is a skill that you have to really practice because a lot of people just run up in there like punks jump up to get beat down. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? So, but yeah, that's what I had on that. That's what came to mind when you said that. But go ahead.
Well, you know something, right? That's going to lead right into what I feel is the ring generalship.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, generalship is real estate, space, time, distance, footwork, and that's where the footwork going to come in. That ring generalship, right? Cutting that fighter off, or the kind of footwork that baits him into action, where you might be again a counter puncher like a Cambosis, right? Or how we love Bam Rodriguez and his
Right.
angles, even
Yes.
a Lomachenko. You know, the
Yes.
angles are designed to make you think you have an angle for you to get hit with a counter.
Right.
And that's the generalship because you might either be coming forward, you could be sidestepping, right? You could
Mm-hmm.
be in and out, you could be rolling. So to me, that ring generalship. And yeah, some people may say splitting hairs or I'm playing with words, but there's a difference between activity where you're feinting, head movement, double jab, triple jab, right? That's activity to me by my measure, right?
Right.
But the ring generalship is where you talk about the footwork, setting your opponent, setting those traps, as we like to call it. Caleb Plant showed us a little bit of that in his most recent fight. So that's what I would allude to if I'm looking at ring generalship, right?
Yeah.
Right? Go ahead.
And I think that ring generalship is crucial, especially from the judge's eyes. Because sometimes like we having a top rank card, so we got to talk about this in the way that Tim and Andre Ward, how they call it. I kept hearing about body language and this and that, right? So a lot of the times, like when we watching these fights, we always say, or I always catch myself saying, man, like you see somebody just basically just following somebody around the ring. They don't know how to step over and
Yeah.
pin them and cut them off and throw the right shot to prevent them from going to the side, but also covering that distance, especially when somebody's hurt.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I was thinking about that as far as and when the judges see it, if you have a style where you're typically a come forward fighter and somebody actually sees you actually putting it, putting yourself, or they the perception is somebody's putting you in the back foot, but you're choosing to go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that for too long, even though that might be your game plan to implement that, the judging eye might say, "Oh, hold on, they're not fighting the way they normally fight," and I think that's where they can kind of fudge up the scores or kind of justify some funky scoring.
And because you mentioned the top rank card, it's specifically one of my guys, Yard man. You see the flag in the back, Jahai Tucker. Especially Tim Bradley made a lot of commentary on Jahai's movement because he was moving backwards and really trying to roll and toy. And Bradley's was more feeling like, and it's true because you do give up a sense of generalship. It doesn't appear as though if you can't more or less lead the opponent, and yeah, he might be following you around, but to the point to where he's following you and he start to get a rhythm in cutting you off or catching you or pinning you against the ropes and you got to fight your way out. Now he's disrupting your rhythm, so the generalship don't look right. Your dance moves don't look so slick, right? You ain't getting sturdy.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, it more look like a river dance than getting sturdy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff, exactly what you pointed out. If you're not really being a matador and you're really just moving back, like, yeah, you giving off the wrong. And I hate that they use that term, the wrong body language. You know what I'm saying? I just say that it's,
Man, that's a pet peeve of mine. Whenever I hear Ward say that, that's kind of like a pet peeve of mine because I'm like body language, like with that Conceição fight.
yeah,
He kept talking about body language. Now we went on to see that he might have got, he might have knew he was winning and kind of celebrated too much. That's what Teddy said. Teddy also said that about Catterall when he beat Josh Taylor. He said that, he basically coasted when he knew that he had it in the bag. And that was the perception of that was one that, it gave more credence to Josh Taylor's activity
sure.
more so than Catterall, and his inability or whatever. But
Right.
To your point about Jahai, I'm glad you brought him up because I heard those comments from Tim, right? And I was thinking that it depends on the stages and the development of a boxer. Like, see, it's different right now because Tim knows what his capability is and he knows that he wants to get rid of him.
Mhm.
But it's like if you go in there and you don't get those rounds in, like how we was on, championship rounds talking about Ammo Williams getting the rounds in, getting that experience that where, yeah, you might, if you really push hard enough, you could get rid of them, but you need to get that experience.
Yeah.
And at this point in time with Jahai, he needs to actually have to do that before he get in the name, because if there's no film of you doing that, and I know I'm a coach or in the corner, anybody else that might be a little more savvy than me, I'm like, well, we don't really see him on the back foot. So I think that sometimes in judging, we could want a fighter to do certain things, but like in Jahai's case, he was actually working on something. So
Yeah.
I felt like, you can't, it leads into something else as far as this one.
Mhm.
When you say activity goes right in hand with effective punching. Because a
Yes.
lot of times I think that this is big, and we're going to see this when it comes to David Benavidez and the fact that he has a lot of activity.
But
But
not necessarily.
go ahead. You know where I'm going with it. Go ahead.
I say it all the time. Slappy punches, they don't quite turn over. And he'll be great for Taekwondo with those kind of punches. But for boxing, you're not really getting the torque on it. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's kind of like a gift and a curse because he's blessed with this hand speed. So
Mm-hmm.
what he's doing is he kind of, just, throwing them lumps and he's throwing nice punches. But again, are they effective? No. Not
Right.
always. You get what I'm saying? And that is something that judges, if they got it in their mind made up that you're a Mexican monster and they're not really being respectful of the difference between activity, which is good, but effective punching means more. And we know that. We know that from Tank Davis style of fighting. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The greats. We're not looking at how many punches they're throwing per round. We tend, and that's why I took shots at it with the smaller guys with the trilogy between Estrada and Chocolatito. When you're watching that fight, you throw a lot of this out the window. Nobody
Yeah.
can bullshit me otherwise. You throw a lot of this out the window because all you're seeing is the volume of punches.
Right.
And it's a tougher job to sort between. So what do you want? You want action. I respect that. Me, You know, hey, some people like them. The girls just to show up with their ass and their cheeks out. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right, right.
I might want to take your clothes off. I want to see something. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I get you. I think about that like with punches, like you mentioned a couple names, but when you actually can see the reaction and you probably like me, that means that you're more of a quality, not quantity
Absolutely.
type person,
Hmm.
and I think that the perception, a lot of times in a lot of these scores at the end of the day, they say, oh, such and such was winning and such and such was winning, and you go back and you look at the numbers, it's like, no, they had a higher volume, but effectiveness they weren't, because that high volume they weren't hitting,
Yeah.
which leads right into the last one, and we'll just open it up with the defense, man, because
Mm.
it's kind of like mentioned last, but isn't it the first thing? And this is what I used to tell my son, right? Because every time we get ready, he used to ball up his fist and he started punching. I said, man, well, don't you want to think about, because everybody wants to hit somebody. It's just like when you play football.
Uh-huh.
Everybody wants to be the running back and go. I said, but somebody got to be the person that's going to be like, all right, then I'm gonna stop him. You know what I'm saying? Or you're not going to be able to
Yeah.
do that on me, like the goalie. Everybody want to kick the winning goal, but nobody really want to stop the goal from going in the goalpost. But it's always mentioned in hindsight, but it's probably the most important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And see, the funny thing about it, how many fighters have we seen where their defense is their offense, where we don't really have a discernible assessment of how much of a defensive fighter they are, right? So we talked about I was talking with, shout out to Hardcore Boxing. I
Mm-hmm.
was talking to him about the way Fury was kind of working that old school kind of like long guard with a parry to it, because he
Right.
knew he was dealing with somebody that was going to roll in under,
Mm-hmm.
similar to the style George Foreman had to use against Joe Frazier. It ain't gonna look pretty. It's a long guard, and that long kind of stiff arm out there, he can still swipe parry with it real quick. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And he ready for the counter. So I mean, that looking somebody that don't have the discernible eye, again, they gonna think that he on some zombie shit. You know what I'm saying? When George Foreman, matter of fact, made his resurgence, he came with the cross guard, and people was like, "Yo, what are you gonna do? You gonna try to bomb George Foreman to the body, and then like, how do you deal with that?" And at 44, he was smart enough to be like, "Yo, I'm coming in here after the 6th round. I'm just dropping you. I mean, the Houston, Texas fifth war beans on the Joker." So
Yeah.
defense. How many fighters can, even when we look at Mike, and this is why you can't take nothing away from him, his lateral movement was his offense and his defense, because he made you think. And sometimes he get cute with it in the beginning, get low to the ground, come all the way up on you to strengthen his legs. I mean, only a few fighters where you can put Floyd Mayweather, obviously,
Yeah.
um, it's a lot of fighters, and even a guy that he gets slept on, but I'm gonna continue to champion his name, because I will say he was. I think of like Peyton Manning, where he played on the Colts for all them years, and everybody knew the Colts couldn't beat nobody because they never had no defense. But if they run up the score, they run up the score. Peyton Manning and that style of quarterbacking, that was Chad Dawson. Chad
Yeah.
Dawson, his defense was offense, and he started off a combination with 3-punch minimum. Sometimes he'll tune the motherfuckers up to 8 punches.
Wow.
I literally watched this man's career, and I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating. He would he would almost open up with a double jet. Talk about activity that led to effective punching and therefore ring generalship. And he was a converted southpaw, so a lot of science behind that, where you clearly understood his defense was his offense. You know what I'm saying? In the
Yeah.
reverse of that, you have Andre Ward, who obviously defeated Chad Dawson, but a converted conventional, and his defense was wicked because he was fighting in that converted manner with his lead hand and able to his parry. Andre Ward's parry was second to none. His catch and parry, as a matter of fact. Again, a lot of fighters, you can't discern and look at him and say, "Hey, let me throw a shot at Tim Bradley." Shout out to him. He going to the Hall of Fame. Tim Bradley's
Yeah.
headbutts was his defense,
Yeah, that
because you never
dome.
wanted to get in the clinch with this Joker,
Yeah, I
and you
think
knew he was coming forward with his head down.
Yeah, I think Holyfield, he had a He was like that as well. He was known for that. But as far as you said something about Chad, I was thinking which led me to a bigger thing. I
Mm.
was thinking about Leo Santa Cruz.
I
I
was
think
thinking of him earlier. Let's
his
go there.
offense, yeah, his offense is pretty much his defense.
Uh-huh.
You know, he throws such a high volume that you can. He has a high motor, and he's pretty much he's not going to really gas out. You have to stop him. You have to hit him to the body. I mean, you have to have something for him because he's not going to stop coming.
Yeah.
Which also, I think the bigger picture is: would you say that the Mexican style is a little less? I can't say concerned with defense, but is it more offensive oriented than it is defense? You know,
A
defensively
thousand
sound.
percent. 1,000%. It's 1,000% assessment. And I've often referred to the Mexican style of boxing as a 2-for-1 style by trade because of the disregard for defense.
Right.
And remember, that's what kind of made De La Hoya an anomaly. He was more defensive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the Mexican style relies a lot on offense and pressure, not even necessarily cutting off. So pressure, activity, and I don't want to say recklessness, but offense. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Recklessness slash offense, because remember, nobody's really concerned about defense in that regard. And to that point, I refer to Canelo, you know what I mean? El Cineman,
Yeah.
as you know, he's got like an alternate traditional style, because all you got to do is implement a little bit of feints and rolls, but he's still going 2-for-1 for the most part because he arrogantly believes in his power. We've seen him do
Right.
that. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
whether it's, I don't know if it's just the bravado in terms of the country style. One thing I do got to lead to, and this kind of brings this thing together, it's another element that almost does not get scored. We acknowledge that it gets ignored, yet it's your foundation, body work.
Right.
Why do judges not? And give Mexican fighters credit for that. Mexican fighters with their gaucho punch, they are more or less very particular and prone to a lot of body work.
Right.
And I don't understand why we know and we almost accept it within, how fights are viewed with respect to judging. Might have given Anthony Joshua a little bit of complexion in that fight with Usyk because he hurt Usyk to the body, had him moving
Yes.
backward. I don't give a fuck what nobody saw. I
Yes.
saw that.
Yes.
Why are we not judging and using body work as a criteria?
They do, but it's an afterthought. And the thing is, it's like scoring a touchdown. It's like if somebody kicked like 5 field goals versus, what I'm saying, doing like 3 Hail Marys, it's the glory. See that when you get hit upside your temple and you go to sleep, you fluff your pillow and cop some Z's. It's a lot different than that body work, because a lot of time body work sometimes, because you gotta think when you inside, and what I'm saying, I'm talking you box and everything, but you gotta think when you go to the body, you gotta be in range to actually hit the body effectively, because if you miss, you're probably in your most vulnerable state.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes an accumulation a lot of times of body work before it really takes its toll, because like you said, when you start going to the body, them elbows start shrinking in, you start covering in the ribs, and then that opens you up. So the body work pays the dividends. Like the body work is that, every time you get paid, you putting 5% over here, you know what I'm saying, off in the cut, it's all, and then it's gaining a little bit of interest. That's the body work. So as it accumulates and it builds up, finally, when them hands come down, you can get that knockout shot if you have a high motor. And I think that's not appreciated because of the glory of it. Unless you do a la Roy Jones when he bobbed and weaved the whole round and just came with that right there to the stomach, and Buddy was like, he couldn't talk, he couldn't breathe. And if you catch somebody on the exhale, it's really over. But it's not appreciated because of the glory.
It's not. And I want to say, physiologically, a headshot can almost wake you up, or the presence of being a little bit out of it, and the act of the ability to regain consciousness and recovery. The headshots is something you can deal with unless you get your bell rung, right?
Right.
But the body work, for me, it really tests your character.
Yeah.
Because it make you think about what's happening, and it has a residual impact. because it's like, it's a different. First of all, it's harder to recover from. It's no alert. Your body don't have a reaction to where, oh shit, I got hit to the ribs and I'm losing air. So no, it ain't no, oh, I could just, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I'm in pain and I'm trying to clench. I can't raise my arm. You know, it's like it's the physical ability to recover in action from a body shot is a lot more difficult than getting hit in the face. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's like when you pop a grenade. When you pull that pin, you got about 3 Mississippis before it exploded, and you had already popped that pin. So by the time you hit somebody, you know what I'm saying, it's a signal that goes up to the brain and says, "Hey, we just got hit with some shit," and it tells the legs get down. Now,
Mhm.
if you get hit in the body and then you get hit in the head, it's a quick signal to say, "Oh shit, we got hit in the head," but that signal from the body comes up, and that's when you get that delayed reaction. And that's the glory that everybody like when the judges actually appreciate it, but it is not on the forefront of everything, but it's very fundamental. The most effective body punchers often win, especially when they
Absolutely.
go to the body early.
It's one of the best strategies you can employ because number one, you have to have variety. So even if it's not, some people, you have to understand, for each particular fighter, that fighter may be more prone to a particular body shot. So a lot of times, you may be able to catch a uppie to the sternum, which is, it's kind of rare-ish. You really have to be, you know, intent on throwing that one. But even something as subtle as if and when you in for hell, a stab jab, man. Change
Yeah,
the complexion of what you doing and the rhythm of what you doing. Don't let nobody figure out. A stab jab to the sternum will change a lot of things, right? And in the
yeah,
clinch, obviously, you beat that body up, hit him down in the hip if you got, nothing too crazy. But again, the body just don't mean the rib cage or the
yeah,
sternum or
yeah.
you not no kidney. You're not trying to hurt nobody, but pop him on the hip. Pop him pretty hard on the hip, just a little bit. If he moving around and you slow him down a little bit, that
Yeah,
shit
yeah.
hurt.
Put some hot sauce on them ribs is what I call it. You know
Oh
what I'm
man, you
saying?
ready for a barbecue?
Hey man, to slow them legs down, man, have you thinking, man, damn, it get you winded, it depletes your conditioning. It's it's a big deal, man. That's why I like it, man. It's ugly, it's brutal, but if you effective, man, you're not gonna be in there toying around for long. Um, I want to talk about the judges, like from the judges' lens, real quick.
Hmm.
You know, um, because like in that Catterall Josh Taylor fight, Josh Taylor actually got dropped, and he and Jack Catterall. I mean, Josh Taylor actually got dropped, and Jack Catterall was actually more effective. He outlanded Josh Taylor. He dropped him. He
Yeah,
didn't get dropped, and we still came at the outcome that what we came. So I believe that's why we're getting a rematch. In this case, I think the what is it, the Triple BC, the British boxing, I think
yeah.
they got it right. They came down. There was a lot of heat, but I think that's really why we getting this rematch. And I think Josh Taylor want to get himself together. But when we arrive at conclusions like that, and this is an open ended question or whatever, but when we arrive at conclusions like that, A, how, and then B, like what can we do? Or like because we talked about before, we said, man, we got to start thinking about how we're looking. Like if everybody on one accord with what they're seeing or whatever, like what can we do? What are some things we can do to try to kind of, you know, help that or deal with those kind of situations?
Honestly, a lot of things are different in the UK, but I'm very, because on one hand, they would have let the Conor Ben Chris Eubank fight happen had it not been made public. On the other hand, they see a decision like that, and also the time when I forgot what fight it was, the judge was looking at his phone
Yeah.
during the fight, and they
Mm-hmm.
suspended him. So there's times when the shit can swing both ways, but it's at least you got somebody to swing the shit either way. We don't have anything like that stateside. We don't got anything like that. And so what I put in the notes too is like, yo, credibility and qualifications. And the sad part about it is that when I say it don't take much, it take time because you need at least 400 rounds of judging in order to be able to judge a professional fight. Now, the first thing you got to do is, how do you become a judge? How do you get exposed? Where do you start, right?
Right.
Now, think about this part, and here's where I'll give you the answer. You don't need no level of education. You don't need no qualifications, no background. You just have to be a patron of the sport to be a judge, right?
Really?
But you do gotta literally, but you do gotta know no level of education, nothing. But you gotta know somebody. So suppose you just a guy that like boxing and you happen to know somebody. Whether you're trying to sincerely or genuinely, you're gonna have that opportunity. Maybe you or I might not get that opportunity, or they may say, "Yo, I'll let you do it for free, but your man gotta pay me." No, you get, there's no rhyme or reason, no governing body, there's no apprenticeship. It just,
Mm.
if somebody respect you enough to allow you to judge the fight, that's contribute to your 400 rounds.
Now,
So it's like
now,
trying to find an apprenticeship, but it's really such a niche trade. It's like, what do you do with that?
yeah, I got a question. I'm gonna put that in the parking lot about. I'm gonna come back to that, but I want to ask. For a while, the NFL, they actually was thinking about, the instant replay and all that, because they saw that they were getting a lot of things wrong. Because if it was deemed as such on the field and it was called that, and somebody didn't have challenges, or it was, a couple little things that it could be raised question. But depending on how it was called on the field,
Sure.
how they ruled it on the field and what was being challenged, it was a loophole basically for some team to get over, whoever the
Yeah.
benefactor was. But is, the instant replay something that maybe boxing, or maybe one in the booth, maybe somebody remotely that can say, hey, we didn't get this right? Because the parking lot part of it was, how many times do we see the commentators say, oh man, he really, whacked him with that blow to the face, or they like, oh, he snapped, and then when they show the replay, it
It
didn't
wasn't
even
nothing.
land. So
Yeah.
who knows if, the counter, when that punch was landing, who knows if they counted that as one of the head punches or body punch, if that was the case. So what do you think about, instant replay, or somebody being remote watching it, and having a final say, or something that would say, hey, we didn't get this right? Is that possible, or would it just slow down the sport?
No, I don't think so at all, because it'll slow down the money. It wouldn't slow down the sport. It would help the sport, because what you still have to factor in is that people want their guy to win. And these judges, kind of going back to moving forward, if all you got to do is know somebody, you would hope that this is an individual with some sort of common sense, some sort of principle, where they'll be honest about what they're seeing, and perhaps they'll be able to judge the fight impartially. If you got somebody doing the instant replay or doing some sort of review, again, I think you should have former fighters. If you don't want to use the former fighters as commentary, cool. But you don't want to use former fighters as judges. I don't know why that ever escaped boxing, right? Give somebody with an honest opinion, or at least an honest eye with no incentive in it. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
But you'll use them as commentators. Cool. If you're gonna use instant replay, it's got to be former fighters. I don't even want to say a former referee. I guess a former referee, because a referee is really impartial, and they only can interfere in the action and kind of delay the inevitable. And their interference is usually obvious. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's why I
Um,
was going next. I
yeah,
was going next because that's always a factor. I know we hear about in negotiations. I know, going back to the Devin thing, since it was, a rubber match, one of the big deals was made was that, Cambosis, and this part of that's like, in some cases, it's poor sportsmanship, unless it's overly bearing where the referee really intervened. We'll get into that. But one of the things that Cambosis was saying, or one of the things he wanted, was to change the referee. And I wanted to speak to you about cases where, the referee might have been a little bit too involved. Or like in the that Ryu Villanueva, like that fight, he
yeah,
he stopped it. He didn't give him a count, but he stopped it. He kind of like gave him some time, and then people were saying, well, wow. And then, you heard the audio when he came in, and he was like, man, I couldn't let him do that to you no more. It was almost like it was personal. So I'm like, you know a little bit
Yeah.
about, well, you know a lot about what you just said as far as the judging, but to become a ref, you know anything about that? And how do you do that? How do you go about that?
You know, it's funny. I kind of I looked up the process. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but shout out to, oh, I can't even remember the brother's name, man.
Don't worry about it. I just, well, what
Damn.
about the impact of a ref on a fight? Like, cases where you
Well,
seen the ref.
so what
What?
what I'm going with too is a similar situation. You really got to go through Larry Hazard. Salute to Larry Hazard. It's his birthday. Larry Hazard was not only the former WBA commissioner, he's a former fighter, former judge, and former referee. Also former, jiu-jitsu champion. All this kind of. I say that to say referees like that with the experience are the ones you love.
Right.
Now, and I'm not saying you got to be that well rounded, but you should at least be involved or experienced in the combat sports, whether it's MMA, whether it's boxing, even if it's the PAL league, if it's the, boys and girls, I don't care what it is. You should have that experience, to be able to understand because, you know, what other kind of experience are you going to have to be able to be impartial in allowing two people to be aggressive with each other? There's no reference for that. There's absolutely no reference for that. So in my mind, you would have to had some experience, but I'm not sure. I think you don't have to have any, but like I said, where would you get that sort of expertise from where you can say, look, I know how to allow a clean break and position myself in between these fighters so they don't get a dirty hit off, or I can step back and where's the discernment? Where do you get? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, maybe from experience, maybe it's just something. It's OJT. It's just pretty much OJT, and just hope you don't stink the joint up. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much, or hope you don't do like what that name Gloria, whatever her name was, like where people start boycotting you, and. But yeah, man, I think refs, refs, like you said, that article you had put out there not too long ago about the guy who finally came out, with the Pacquiao judge. I know you. I mean, you were
Yeah.
passionate about that. Um, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's gonna be any kind of uh penalty. I mean, because it's already done. It's like what could be, because is there a statute of limitations? It's like, really, what can you do other than him just having egg on his face at this point?
Yo, and that fight would have changed the other fighter's trajectory for the rest of his career because then he would have got that fight with, I believe, I'm not sure which Pacquiao had a few trilogies and things like that. I don't know if it was Morales or whatever, but this fighter would have got that fight if my man ain't cook it for Pacquiao. So you really got to look at like what was the interest and the power behind that made that referee make that decision. I'm sure the decision might have been easy over money, you know what I'm saying? But it's like who asked him to do it is the more intriguing question. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Did he do that on his own? And that's kind of like, of course, if he's coming out about it now, he ain't gonna drop the ball and say, yeah, well, you know what, long ago. I mean, yo, liken it to another article. All of a sudden, they're trying to connect Southwest T somehow to Jam Master J.
oh wow.
And this is like wow information because when you're part of this generation, you're part of hip hop, and you from that, you saying, whoa, we already knew the streets and hip hop overlap, but now you're literally connecting two iconic figures in their respective, industries, if you will. So it's like this referee, maybe his name ain't important enough. Maybe he ain't ready to say it was this promoter or that promoter, but he'll take it on the chin for himself and maybe blame it on his Filipino pride and say, I did that because, I was a fan of Manny Pacquiao, right? But
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is somebody paid him to make that decision, and then he was okay with making that decision. So how many referees out here, right? And that's why we have to watch these fights closely. That's why we need something like the BBC out here, because if you got a guy that's operating as a renegade or he's operating on behalf of somebody, it's only the only vehicle we have now is our public outrage to
Right.
try to combat that. You know what I'm saying? Or else
Yeah.
it's gonna be motherfuckers coming out 20 years later talking about, yo, I seen an article about the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder first fight, that some people are saying that the fight should have actually been called off
Mhm.
because when he was unconscious on the ground before the count started, that was the extra time that he got to recover, and then the long count. I mean, at this rate, with what we know could happen in boxing, you can never put it past that being out of the realm of possibility. Now, do I want to give that as another reason for Wilder to, to say that he was colluded against? Not necessarily, but I'm logical and I'm practical enough to say, hey, if he was out cold and that there's some sort of protocol to check on him, then usually they call off the fights if it's emergent enough to check on him, unless it's a cut they're trying to gauge,
Right.
something like that. So this referee element of boxing, man, I don't think the referee element has been as hurtful as the judge element. And I don't want to put that on the referee element, man, but we do have to be careful with what we do, in boxing, and how we approach viewing it.
Yeah, I think that it is a challenge for the refs because going back to the Fury Wilder thing, they said the long count thing twice. They said it the first time, and then they came back and they said it in the third fight. I mean, in the third fight they said it. And I'm like, well, how much of the onus if you're gonna be, if you're gonna play like the rules, then one of the rules is you have to go to the neutral corner. If the referee starts to count and he has to tell you to go back to your neutral corner, the time stops. And then the referee has to proceed because I don't know as far as the background of the rule, but I'm assuming that you can't be in an aggressive posture. I don't know what the reason is. You couldn't be in an aggressive posture or be able to just roam around and somebody not know where you at while the referee is actually paying attention to the combatant that's on the canvas. So he has to make sure that you in the spot that you need to be so that he can do his thing. We've also seen fights stop prematurely. So we got the long count, and then we got the fights that get stopped prematurely all the time. Like, I thought that it was a good fight, and I believe that even though Gary Antoine Russell is my man, that Rancis Bartholomew fight, I thought that was a slightly
Yeah.
premature stoppage. I think the ref, that's why I think that maybe somebody in another location or outside of the three common, and I think it would help with the scorecards as well. It would help with refereeing and judging if you had another party at a neutral spot that could say, hey, we didn't get this right, or no, this was the actual count, or this another set of eyes, because we've seen it stopped early. We've seen long counts, even though sometimes if you get your ass knocked out, a referee can count to 20 Mississippi. You wasn't getting up. You know what I'm saying? Just make it look bad.
Yeah.
But we do need to do something as far as, because that's how fights are judged. You got anything on that before I go on to
Hey,
the other one?
one more move I think referees might be doing, and I know you've seen this. It's like you said, they trying to secure the other fighter, but it's kind of shifty. They do a double. Okay, over to the corner. Okay, back to the corner, back to the corner. And sometimes you do get an overzealous fighter, but they might spend a little bit more time with the back to the corner and then go and be like, what? So the scorekeeper might have to be accurate with it and be like, nah, I'm on 4, buddy. And he like
Yeah.
3. He's like, nah, 5. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to watch that move. You know what I'm saying? I hate to do like I'm being suspicious, but
Yeah, I mean, it's you're right. It's human. You got some human error where some refs are just like, wow, because you got to think, man, depending on how big those names are, how much money is ride, you might have the mafia sitting outside. Like, not only will you be frying fish tomorrow, but we're gonna fry your ass tonight if you don't get this call right. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
I want to transition into the last thing before we wrap up any closing thoughts that you had. And the other aspect of judging the fight that I find to be one of the most irritating is the commentary.
Mhm.
there are often times where I actually have to turn the volume down. I think this is a good exercise. Take this little nugget, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take this nugget. Everybody who listening or might come across the playback or whatever. Sometimes you have to turn the volume down, watch a whole fight, and right when the bell rings and they go back to the corner, go back and listen to the synopsis of what they said. Because oftentimes you'll hear, I'm not gonna say any names because I don't want to trash anybody, but you'll hear somebody saying, "Oh, he really did this," and it's not really that. It's like, calm down, man. We all watching the same thing, but the commentary can actually influence it. And I don't know, because I think the first time when Regis and Josh Taylor got it on, I listened to it. And the first time
Yeah.
that Monster Innerway and what's his name? The legend. They had a rubber match, but I listened to it and then I watched it and I got two different versions. You know what I'm saying? So I think that sometimes, especially if you got biased commentary, there's certain networks to where you already know they're gonna lay the sauce on extra thick, and it's annoying because it's like, they spend a lot of times talking when the action is going on, giving back filler, telling like, oh yeah, he went to whatever college, and all this backdrop, and it's like punches are being thrown and landed, people are missing, and you're not calling the fight. So what do you say about the commentary aspect of judging the
You know,
fight? Can it influence you? Has it influenced you
oh,
before?
absolutely. Absolutely. Like, when I first started watching boxing, I had to kind of separate that. And what before I had the understanding to turn the volume off, I just, from watching it in the bar and looking up at the TV and not having access to the sound,
Yeah.
is what gave me. This was during the era, the era of Friday night fights. So I'm sitting at the bar Friday night, 10 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? I'm watching, like, yeah, let's get it on. And I'm able to just watch it in its purest form. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, looking up at. So to that point, and yes, if I'm listening to the commentary, sometimes it's not apparent that it's biased, but it's not recognizing a particular the other fighter's work.
Right.
And like you said, it could be literally like, and we've heard that term, smothering smothering the fighter's work, because instead of allowing that fighter to get credit for the effective punching or the ring generalship or the body work or the things that we're watching, they're too busy tell us, yeah, he left his job as a so and so, and I get all that. All that is interesting. I know Jamel Herring was a Marine. I get all of that. I want all of that backstory. But guess what? I need to. Yeah, Michaela Mayer's father drove her back and forth, and he didn't think she was serious. This is all the shit they talking about during the fight instead of talking about the punches. How you think I know it? Because they're talking about it. Joe
Yeah, often,
Kriegel,
yeah, I
Mark
often say,
Kriegel,
often
Kriegel
say,
and Tessitore.
yeah, yeah. I often say, man, how convenient, man. It's like, they don't give sometimes, yeah, the biased commentary is like when they don't give credit to what the other fighters doing, or the clear, the one who the house don't have the money on, they don't really acknowledge that. And I think that in watching the fights, and also I don't know if how they always like at the halfway mark. That's how I judge my scoring sometimes. At the halfway mark, I line up to where, even if it's some swing rounds, I line up to what I have on my scorecard versus what whoever the person that comes in the halfway mark and says what they have it up to. I often wonder, like, I know they can hear, but I wonder, can they hear the commentary as they present their scorecard? Because I think that's a way that they actually massage the scores or impact
Yeah,
public opinion. Because you might hear two guys going back and forth saying, "Oh man, yeah," and they going this and they got the fight one way, and they'll say, "But let's just see how such and such has it," and they come in, it's like, "Yeah, I have it as blah blah blah," and it's a way to actually influence the masses, because a lot of the times, if you got somebody that everybody's waiting to see lose, or somebody that you don't necessarily favor, you can be like, "Oh man, they were dead on with the commentary. Oh man, I don't know what fight you was watching." And then the guy in it comes in halfway and he gives his little thing, and you're all aboard when that's clearly not the fight that everybody was watching.
now every time that happens, it usually, and that's a great pointer that you gave out. Just like sample the commentary, but watch the fight. Wait to the end, you'll be good to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait to the end of the round and listen to what they said. Line that up with what you just saw. I mean, yo, it's so funny when I look at, like, I don't really want to blast nobody, man, because I guess we're all guilty of it if we're looking for a certain fighter to do something. But that's why I try to be impartial, because
Right.
you end up judging the fighter you want and reporting on the fighter you want, and then you just miss out. People can convince themselves they see what they want to see, and then once you hear what they, it's like, yeah, that's what I thought I saw. And where I was going with that too is you'd be surprised how quiet during that time. Like, the crowd is murmuring, but people are tired. The audience is kind of like this. Everything the judges and the announcers is saying can be heard. The fighters can hear that shit. Everybody can hear that shit. So yeah, a long winding road to say yes. The volume in most arenas and the effect that's going on. Everybody kind of tired. People might have gotten up and left to beat the parking lot. The arenas are surprisingly quiet. And if you ain't been paying attention to watching the fight, then you're gonna be trying to listen. Just like if we gotta step out and go to the kitchen, or we gotta go to the car, or we gotta go do something, we're gonna be listening with our ears. Or we're gonna depend on what somebody might have told you. Yeah, man, that rap was hot. We're gonna try to gather from it. And that is kind of a human way to do it, but you kind of have a big obligation to have all eyes on what's going on.
Yeah, man. Yeah, good one, man. Good contribution. The very last layer to the onion.
Mm-hmm.
When we started inside out, we started with the fighters, then we went to the judges, then we went to the referee, then we went to the commentary, and the last layer to the onion is the crowd itself. We see this all the time. It was heavy in the Canelo and Caleb Plant fight.
Yeah.
You might even seen a little bit of it in the Tank Cruz fight, because when you have a fan base, and it's a certain fan base, then they just show up in numbers. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. They just show up and they show out for their fighters. They can actually impact your influence on the fight, because when the crowd, especially when you got a real popular guy going against somebody that they don't see as winning, and they come out, and it seems like no matter what, it's like one boxer could pluck the other boxer in the forehead, and the crowd gonna be like, oh, ah, and a lot of times that actually influences that can actually influence a fight. Have you ever, in all your years of boxing, can a crowd actually influence a fight, King?
Not if the judges got a brain and some eyes. And I give you the basic example of that, because we stood up and applauded what happened, that Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall fight. The crowd was clearly excited about the fight, but they made every bit of noise when Marshall's landed anything. You know what I mean? So at that point, it's like, I was nervous. I'm like, damn, are they watching what we're watching? And thankfully, again, the judges was fair and honest. They had no incentive other than keeping boxing pure to
Right,
make the decision that they made. You get what I'm saying?
right.
It could have gone the other way. We used to, oh yeah, you can't win it on the cards in the UK. That used to be a thing. Now not so much, man. So nah, I don't think they got the power to sway it. Not if the judges are on their job.
I'm gonna tell you the fail safe thing that I see when I watch box, and we got crowds that really have a favorite. One, there's been cases where a fighter might go in as the heavy underdog and might even be getting booed. As the rounds go on, you can tell, especially if the favorite has the audience in control. The quieter the noise get speaks to which fighter is really winning. And if at the end, the underdog, or the person that has the least favorite crowd out there in the arena, if they get a standing ovation or they get a round of applause, that's the ultimate testament to the boxer itself. Because in the Aaron Pryor and who was that? Aaron Pryor and Alexis Aguayo.
Mm-hmm.
That fight was just like that. And through that fight, by the time Aaron Pryor got done, that heavily biased crowd gave that man a standing ovation. So that's something for the boxers. A long time ago, I did something that said, when I put up a little sample of these videos I'll be doing, top 5 myths in boxing, and one of them was knockouts are overrated. They're actually not, because you take it out of the judges' hands, you take it out of the ref hands, you end the show. That's the only way really to stop somebody, to make somebody quit, or to knock somebody out. That's the only way to actually take all of that judging into your own hands. So when you say, oh man, it's not all about knockouts, but that's pretty much a fail-safe proof, unless you got something in your system. You can't be popping that clomiphene, you can't be drinking no tea, eating no wild boar meat, whatever it is, whatever your source of protein is, you better be careful. The only way to get the job done is a knockout. That's how you take the judging out of everybody's hands and you take ownership of the fight,
That's it.
So, but yeah, good segment, man. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to wrap up, man. We be cooking over there in the championship rounds, man. Epic piece we did for Women's Boxing Wednesdays with the misogyny piece. You know what I'm saying? I liked it, man. I think that it's a level of journalism that we're tapping into, man, and I think it's going to stir a lot of dialogue. I thank you for keep having me over there. I appreciate you for showing up over here, man, and we're gonna keep doing it, man. You want to shout out your channel, give a plug, or whatever you want to say?
Yeah, definitely, man. This was a brilliant topic, man. I had fun with this one. It's always good to get off the clock. You know how we use that analogy, and seriously, um, boxing is like you know it's so ingrained in everything we do. Despite what we got going on, man, we always come back, and it's almost like boxing is growing. You see it growing around us, and I love what we doing on the championship rounds, of course. And I feel like if we not doing this, if we not building and getting our boxing minds together, like the community, the boxing community is missing out. This ain't about us being arrogant, but I'm just being real with y'all, ladies and gentlemen. The passion me and this brother got for boxing, you ain't got to thank us, but appreciate it. Drop a like, drop something on the Cash App, give a follow. I don't care what you do. Tune in, give a view, steal a little bit and try to remix it. I'm telling you, all this does is help the sport grow. You don't know how excited it is. You know what I'm saying? For me to have something to do, it's like, um, this is my brother right here when it come to this. So keep tuning in to what we doing over here and what we're doing over there. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Instagram. And of course, check me out here on the next episode of Boxing Minds.
Yeah, man. You know what I say, man?
Hmm.
I always say it's boxing minds over boxing mouths. Everybody work boxing, but we don't take things for face value. We do that body work. Salute, champ.
Salute.